This is a Hope 1032 podcast.
The pandemic in general was just not something that she really could get a grip on or understand. And so I think when we went into lockdown, that was an hourly conversation with Oma at home as to why the front door was locked. Couldn't understand why shopping was off the cards. Couldn't understand why we just weren't going to places. And it is tiring. Yeah, it's very hard to have that conversation every hour all the time when you go in.
I'm Georgia, and welcome to Finding Hope, the podcast that finds the good in the midst of the bad. Each episode, we meet someone who's had a bit of a hard time but has found hope and healing along the way, and hopefully they inspire you to embrace the good in your world too. Episode 32. Jason Van Genderen. Filmmaker Jason Van Genderen is a typical dad. He loves his family, his wife and kids, and he loves making home movies. He also has a special place in his heart for his mum, a magnificent Dutch matriarch by the name of Hendrika, who they affectionately call Oma. Jason, his wife Megan, and his two children brought Oma to live with them after she developed dementia and could no longer live independently. Jason began making home videos with Oma, showing the highs and lows of living with dementia. And soon, Oma had a community of more than 100,000 people on a Facebook page called Oma's Applesauce. Sadly, Oma lost her brave battle with Alzheimer's and vascular dementia in February of this year. But Jason has compiled these home videos into a powerful documentary called Everybody's Oma, which has recently been nominated for the ACTRA Awards in the Best Documentary category. It was a joy and privilege to sit down with Jason for this conversation, and I'm so excited for you to meet him. Now, normally I would start an episode by asking you to tell me a little bit about yourself, but I feel like this story is a little bit bigger than you. So I want to start by asking you to tell me a bit about your mum, Hendrika.
So, my mum, Hendrika, is, the quintessential Dutch matriarch, very strong, very protective, very loving. She was always the organizer of the family. She was always the source of entertainment. She managed everything in the family, as a lot of mums do. Had lived in Australia for longer than what she'd lived in Holland. Emigrated out here in the 50s, started a family and became part of the community and lived very happily, loved people, squeezy, huggy person. You'd sort of meet her for the first time and she'd latch onto you and hold you and give you a hug like she knew you forever. She's just one of those old souls you meet that just seems to be a real people person, just knows you. And she's always just been a wonderful friend, I think, in life. I've always had a great relationship with her all through life and been really protective of her as well.
Hendrika sounds like such a beautiful person, and Jason just beams with love and gratitude when he talks about her. You can hear it in his voice. Jason is a family man, there's no doubt about that, and he's been capturing the memories of his family in a very quintessential dad way, home videos.
I'm one of those serial dads in the family that's always filming everything, but I do also happen to have a filmmaking background, so I can be forgiven for that, I think. But my kids are always like saying, "Dad, put your phone away," I love documenting. I think for me, capturing moments of everyday family life are really, really important, and it really, I guess, the clarity point for me came, that would have been around 12 years ago when we lost my father to cancer. And we knew he was not going to be long with us. And so I started documenting my parents' story. So both Oma and my dad together, mum and dad together on the couch for a day. I started interviewing them about their life, their relationship, their careers, all sorts of stuff. Anything that I wanted to ask them that I wanted to make sure we had captured for history's sake in the family, and did that, and inadvertently realized that through that interview with my dad, who we knew we were about to lose, the one thing we didn't realize is we were lose my mum's mind. So I had captured this beautiful interview of both my parents being really fluid in conversation pre-dementia. And that really became a super important, story to have in our family. And certainly as years progressed and my mum was living on her own, she became more dependent on us for help. And dementia presented itself and was diagnosed. And then we ended up encouraging her to sell the house and come and live with us as a family. And when we bought a home together, we lived together for almost 5 years and kept documenting, because I realized that her story was something we really wanted to celebrate and remember. And, we started sharing those stories on Facebook. We found a huge community of support around that. And then one day said, maybe there's a bigger story in this.
Yeah, and there definitely is, and we will get to talking about the documentary really soon. I want to talk a little bit about that process of your mum kind of moving in, living together. How did you balance your mum still maintaining independence, but also obviously needing a great deal of help, especially towards the end?
Yeah, look, mum, it became increasingly obvious that my mum needed us around her more than what I could do by just going and visiting her one day a week. She couldn't drive. She never learned to drive a car, for instance. So my dad was always the person that would ferry them around from spot to spot for shopping and events and things like that. So, and it's quite manageable to live in a home on your own when you're surrounded by public transport and when you've got the confidence to use public transport and things like that. What we started realizing with Oma was that she wasn't really that confident using transport. She wasn't really picking up the phone and booking a taxi to go somewhere. She'd sit at home and wait until the following Friday that I was there with her and then go and do those things together. And, she started having a few falls and started becoming a bit forgetful. And then we realized that there was she needed a bit more assistance from the family than just that weekly visit. And it was a huge shift for us. It was a massive shift, with we had a home with both young kids and older kids as well. We're a blended family. And it was a big ask on everyone to sort of open up and make space for Oma to come and live with us. But she was always she was always so happy and compliant's a horrible word to say, but just, agreeable and would fit in with what was going in and around the family. So she slotted in really easily. She had her own little granny flat attached to our family home with an internal door as well. So we always felt super close, but she still had a privacy of, her own space, her own furniture, her own TV she could watch. She could cook her own meals at the start, and she wanted that. It was more just about being closer together in the same space so that you'd see someone you knew every day. You could have conversation. We'd have cups of coffee together. We'd have a couple of meals together during the week as well. But it was just that, the daily transactional stuff that you miss when you're living on your own, just the other conversations in the house, which I think is the thing that we really grew to love. And I know she gained a lot from. It was very easy to start with. It grew harder gradually as the dementia sort of increased her needing to rely on the family to support her. And, it's the same. Look, this is a path walked by so many families all around the country with anyone with high care needs. In a palliative condition, you're going to increase your workload, and there's going to be more falls, and there's going to be more trips to the hospital and more trips to the doctor, and it's just that constant adjustment, getting used to those things, learning to cope and learning to understand what you can help with yourself and what you need external help with.
Adjustment. I'm sure every caregiver can relate to this, holding everything loosely because you never quite know what the day is going to bring. Well, I don't think even the most seasoned caregiver among us could have been prepared for the curveball in March of 2020. I want to talk about COVID because during lockdown, that's when I saw one of the viral videos of you taking your mum out on a date, which divine. But how difficult was it? How much did your mum comprehend about COVID and lockdown? How did you manage to kind of explain that to her in terms that she'll understand? How was that process?
Yeah, that was tricky. Look, COVID was not the pandemic in general was just not something that she really could get a grip on or understand. And so I think when we went into lockdown, that was an hourly conversation with Oma at home as to why the front door was locked, why she couldn't just go off wandering down into the street. I mean, that was because of falls as well. But, she didn't understand why we weren't going for the daily trip down to the cafe to have her morning coffee and to meet the locals, as she was used to doing every morning. Couldn't understand why shopping was off the cards. Couldn't understand why we just weren't going to places. And it is tiring. It's very hard to have that conversation every hour all the time when you go in. You need to remind. But we did our best, and I think we would continually put little signs around her home as well with little illustrations and little messages about the fact why we're all staying at home, reinforcing the fact that we were at home, not just her, that we were working from home as well, that the kids weren't going to school, that we're all at home because of the virus outside. Megan had a great way. My wife Megan had a wonderful way of explaining it to her one day. She said, it's like a war with sickness outside the house. So think of it like a war. And she could imagine what war was like because she'd lived through World War II as a child. So, that was something she could actually understand. And, she would watch the news, and we're never quite sure how much of that sank in with her. But we know she felt safe at home. We know she felt supported by having the family around her. And increasingly, as we found more kind of whimsical ways to keep ourselves entertained amidst the cabin fever of isolation, we found increasingly more playful ways to involve her in life at home and still and create situations that spoke to her reality, not ours, by restricting her routines and removing the things like shopping and stuff like that from outside of the house. It was really affecting her confidence and her happiness and her place in the world. She felt like those things were taken away from her, and she couldn't really understand and balance why. So we knew that if we could sort of speak to that need, and if we could create a bit of a make-believe environment where we could create, for instance, a grocery shopping store at home. We created a clothes boutique at home for her when we had to go clothes shopping. We did as much as we could to try and reproduce the outside world or bring the outside world into the house for her to still experience and do those sorts of things. And I know Artie and Megan had like dress up, they had like a hairdresser salon at home on different times. Whenever Oma had to get a hair washed or a haircut, we'd create a little shop out of it, all those little things, just so it felt like a process of going somewhere, doing something, putting a jacket on, coming into another room in the house, experiencing something, and then going back into a granny flat again.
And it was in one of those whimsical home outings where I first found Jason and the wonderful Oma on a Facebook video that went viral during one of the lockdowns. They had created a supermarket in their own kitchen, complete with aisles and a cash register.
So we've been living in home isolation now for 4 weeks. My mum lives with us. She's 87. She has Alzheimer's and vascular dementia. One of her big things that she hangs her week on is her weekly shopping trip. But what we thought we'd do is we'd open up a supermarket at home.
Shopping at home?
Yeah, we've made a shopping centre at home, especially for you. It's a bit hard because we can't take you to the shops. So we thought we'd bring the shops to you. Okay? So look, welcome to Coles. We've got Megan from Coles and Evie. And we've got Art on the register. So we've got your list here.
Yes.
So let's start and have a look what you need.
Bananas.
Bananas. So let's back up a little bit.
Yep, we got applesauce.
Oh, but they need, have you got some pork sirloin?
Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic. We'll take the whole pack.
Yes. Is it all my shopping?
Yeah, it looks like. So you're going to have to see Art on the cash register.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, darling.
Have a good day, madam.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You can find all of those videos on the Facebook page Oma's Applesauce. I have spent literally hours scrolling, laughing, crying at these incredible videos. And now they've all been compiled into one documentary called Everybody's Oma, which has just been named as a finalist for the 2022 ACTA Awards for Best Documentary. Now, for those outside of Australia, ACTA is the Australian Academy of Cinema and Television Arts. Basically, it's kind of a big deal. Let's talk about the documentary because it is wonderful, real compilation of the best and worst of this journey.
Mm.
Why did you decide to actually make this into, one piece?
Well, essentially just the community that came to us. So by having that Oma's Applesauce community on Facebook with those small stories that we'd shared, we quickly attracted well over 100,000 people on that Facebook page. I often joke to people, it's taken me, I don't know how many years on Facebook to get 3,000 followers. And there's, my mum who doesn't even know how to use Facebook, and all of a sudden, bang, 100,000 followers. It's a classic line. But, for the right reason. She's just such an incredibly, enigmatic person, and her story was so important to share. It was those conversations on that page. It's that community that surrounded us with love and support that made us realize that we had this great opportunity to tell a more serious, a mainstream story. I mean, something that people would go and see in their local cinemas, for instance. Something that maybe paints dementia in a slightly different portrait. We're very used to seeing very stereotyped imagery when it comes to conditions like dementia, and I think it was really important for us to maybe try and peel some of those layers back and show some alternate perspectives, while still being truthful to the journey that we've lived.
How did your kids love having their Oma around? I can imagine it just would have been such a joy.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone that's had the pleasure of seeing kids with just conversing with people with dementia is a beautiful thing. We as adults tend to wrap a lot of complexity in our conversations and our expectations of, when we sit down for a meal time, we want to have a nice little riveting conversation about something. We entertain one another. I watch Artie, our 6-year-old, and Oma sit down, a 6-year-old and an 86-year-old sitting down having a meal together without the need for words. And yet they're completely in each other's space. They look at each other, they exchange glances. It's a little giggle. It's a smile. It's a reassuring tap on the hand. It's playing with something on the plate, and then the other one mirrors it. There's so much unspoken gold between what Megan and I watched our kids relate to Oma with. And I think as parents, they taught us so much about caring and love just through their language of how they lived with Oma. And Megan and I were just talking about this morning, how incredible was, there's certain things you can't teach children. They just need to experience and see and live. And to have watched Artie develop his own language with Oma, as a child speaking to someone trying to get a point across, to speak slowly, use simple language, have pause in the conversation. And then he uses touch, like he'd reach out his hand and he'd hold Oma's arm when he's speaking with her, and he'd point to his mouth to make sure that she was partially lip reading as well at times. He had all of these cues, and he knew instinctively what to do to create a bond with her, and he'd have patience for it. And they're beautiful things. They're just such beautiful qualities. And I think there's a lot we can learn from kids that can help unpick the complexities that we wrap into conversation as adults.
That's so beautiful. And there are so many joyous moments for sure. I want to talk about the challenging parts as well, because I feel like that's navigated so well in the documentary, the inevitable frustrations that you and Megan were feeling about the situation. Can you talk a little bit about the impact that this had on your relationship?
Yeah, well, I mean, you'll see in the film that it's not just all happy clappy, right? We also turn the camera in on the more challenging things that happen in the house, and that was part of us, I guess, making sure that not only are we're being completely transparent about a journey like this, but also wanting to validate the journeys of so many people in homes all around the country that are living this journey themselves. And we documented so many things. We documented, there's an argument between Megan and I in the kitchen one morning about Oma's cat, the little trivial stuff in life that you just get caught up on as a couple. And when you're under a stressful situation, it just blows up into this big, big thing. And Megan just picked up her phone and started capturing this conversation, and it made its way in the film. But, it was important for us to do that because we want to be real, and we want we want people to see pieces of their life and their story reflected and mirrored inside our own. And that's life, right? Life is messy and beautiful and loving and challenging, and all those different things combined together. And so we felt really comfortable using the camera to capture all sides of the story. Our iPhones kind of became like a character in the film or a character in the family, because we knew we were so used to sharing what was going on that we just capture stuff because it was part of our journey. And once we knew that we had a responsibility to an audience to capture that as well, we needed to make sure that we did that really meaningfully and intentionally.
Yeah, it's really important. Now, eventually, as is the case with Alzheimer's, vascular dementia, any form of dementia, it gets progressively worse. There is no getting better. Eventually, your mum's condition worsened to the point where she couldn't remain in your home anymore. What was the point? Was there a point, or was it a gradual thing where you realised that you needed to transition her to high care?
Yeah, look, our experience, and again, I just want to recognize the fact that everybody's journeys with dementia is slightly different, and I don't. My shared experience is not everybody's or another person's shared experience. I can only speak from our own, but we found there came a point in Oma's health where the hospital trips were increasing, the falls were increasing, and she was getting to a point where, and quite rapidly so, where home was not the safest thing for her anymore, because she was requiring around-the-clock care, which meant that Megan and I ended up having to do shifts, even sleeping throughout the night. And for anyone listening that's got a young family, you'll well know how challenging that is with young kids waking during the night as well. And then you've got someone at the other end of the house that's also waking, going to the toilet, all throughout the night. So we were doing 2-hour shifts and sleeping, and you can manage that for maybe days. You're not going to be able to manage that for weeks. So we had exhausted all the help we could utilize in home, and we were surrounded by a fantastic community of carers that came to support us at home, and some people that came at the end and help with overnight sleepovers as well. But it wasn't long-term sustainable, and we realized that we needed to find a better solution, not only for Oma, but for the family as well. We couldn't neglect our kids, and Megan and I couldn't neglect each other in a relationship. We needed to be able to be present in each other's space as well. So we ended up making the call. We spoke with a wonderful lady by the name of Danielle Robertson, who connected us with the ability to go and look at a few homes and assess and weigh up what was important. And we settled on one aged care community close to our home, only 7 minutes away, where we could basically theme the room like a room in Oma's house. It was a nice, beautiful, big room. And we knew that we could make that Oma's home. She had a little balcony. She overlooked a garden, all the things that were important to her. And we set about making that her new home, initially as respite care, and then eventually it was her permanent home.
Although Omar's transition into aged care was largely a positive one, that is not the case for everyone. And Jason hopes that the film will start to make a difference to the aged care system in Australia.
I would love, if we can broaden the conversation by sharing this story in this film, if we can help just broaden people's conversations around what's meaningful for our elders when they do reach that stage in life when they need full-time care, and we can work as a community harder towards creating better spaces and making aged care a more supported industry. Our aged care workers are doing an incredible job under very, very, very challenging conditions. It really is something, and it's getting a lot of negative press, and people are stretched to the limit. And really, we need to surround those people with love and hope and support, and try and be a part of the solution, part of making those things better, rather than as a community constantly critiquing, how challenging and how tough these spaces are. We can make them as individuals, we can make them better. And, families are an equal part in that, is in working with aged care facilities and working with the industry to make it a more supportive and more inclusive experience for our elders.
Jason, what would you want people to understand about caring for someone with dementia? I know that the stories and journeys are so varied. What would you want people maybe to better understand about the journey?
I think we need to really be aware that dementia in our society is growing exponentially. And at the moment, there's a lot of research being done, but we're not finding a lot that's going to change the numbers in the short term. So most of our families, most people listening to this are going to experience someone close to them that has dementia. The one thing I would really encourage people to embrace is to not turn away. And whether that meant turning away from the person or turning away from the family, it's really, really important to give yourself the opportunity to learn new skills, learn new patience and new love. And remember that person that's losing pieces of themselves doesn't deserve to lose you in the process as well. So by opening your heart to that process of care, you can do it. We can all do it. I never thought I'd be able to, give up my career and become, a co-carer with Megan of OMA. It is indeed probably one of the most challenging, but also one of the most enlightening experiences I've ever had in my life. And if I had to play that chapter of life all over again, I absolutely would do it exactly the same way, because there's something beautiful about helping someone in that stage of their life, and the things that we learn about each other are really, really life affirming. And that's something that we really wanted to celebrate in the documentary as well, which is that whole idea is using the lens of dementia as a teacher, what it taught us as a family about each other and about how we could live and cohabit together was incredible. And if any of that can rub off onto other families, then, even if it changes one family's direction, to me, that's completely worth it.
Well, Jason, it has been such a pleasure having you on the podcast today. We started this episode with your mum. I want to end it with your mum as well. She lost her battle in February of this year, but she has impacted hundreds of thousands, millions more people than I think she ever realised. How do you best like to remember her?
Well, I just love to remember her as the fact that even when she was losing her mind, she gave our family the greatest gift of love. And we found each other as a family through losing her. And I think, if there's any more selfless thing in the world, like, that is it. Love is love. And it's one of the end lines in the film, unlike a memory, love lasts forever. And I think she proved to us that love can last forever, even when you're losing your memory. So, that to me is the memory I hold of OMA. And I feel incredibly privileged that we've got the ability to share the story now with other people, and hope that we create more meaningful conversations around that space at the same time.
Thank you so much to Jason Van Genderen for sharing both his story and also the story of his beautiful mum, Hendrika. For details on how to watch Everybody's OMA, plus all of the wonderful home videos, you can head to the incredible page on Facebook, this beautiful community called OMA's Applesauce, and that information is in the show notes. Everybody's OMA has been named as a finalist for the 2022 ACTA Awards for Best Documentary, and further voting for this process begins next month. If someone you love is dealing with dementia, you can find resources and support at the Dementia Australia website, which is dementia.org.au. I'm Georgia, and thank you for listening to this episode of Finding Hope. I would love to hear your feedback. You can send me an email, a review, or share it with your friends. I think stories are always better when they're shared, and you never know what someone can learn from another person's journey. If you or someone you know also has a story of hope to share and you would like to be interviewed for the podcast, I would also love to hear from you. You can leave a comment on the Finding Hope page at hopepodcasts.com.au. For now, I'll leave you with this verse. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 7. Catch you next time.
This is a Hope 1032 production. Thanks for listening.